Hello, this video is going to be mostly just discussing all the rune variations for Senna and kind of giving you better insight. So if that's what you're looking for, that's what this video is about. So anyways, the main keystone that we're going to be taking on Senna is going to be Airy. One of the highest synergy like keystones of any champion because Senna basically functions like the Enchantress supports do. She deals damage and then later transitions into a healing role. But then even if she doesn't do that, Summon Aerie still going to be giving her damage. So really good rune. It's going to add to your poking lane, and then it's going to add to your peel ability by giving your allies a shield when you heal them or when you ult them. So that's good. And then second's going to be Mana Flow Ban. Senna's Q becomes pretty expensive later into the game, about 110 mana cost if I remember correctly. So to actually be able to get it off 2 or 3 times during a team fight, it's nice to have the extra mana to do so. Now in some matchups in which you would run barrier, like let's say Nautilus, Leona, etc., where you could run barrier, Nimbus Cloak is also pretty effective because even if those champions get on top of you, so long that you buffer your W and then use barrier and your E, you can probably just walk away from it, which is super insane for a champion to be able to do that, especially a support champion like Senna. So in those matchups, definitely run Nimbus Cloak and then barrier. But in most matchups, like let's say range versus ranged, that's not lethal, or a matchup that you have advantage, like let's say the easiest matchup for Senna is probably like Tom Kinch or Braum, something like that, where you're basically just hitting a sandbag, then the extra mana is pretty free. And then if you're against Karthus, Nullifying Orb's pretty good. So like the mana flow ban's not necessary, but it is nice basically. So all of these options are good in this row. Just depending on the game that you're going into, consider the other ones. And then for the third row, I think Absolute Focus. Again, all three of these, pretty good on Senna. Celerity, kind of not so useful as the times you're going to get value out of it isn't so obvious because you do get extra movement speed from your passive, but Celerity is not going to add to that. Celerity will add to your E movement speed. It's kind of weird for Celerity with Senna, but it feels nice, but what not very valuable. And then with Transcendence, it's kind of the same thing as Mana Flow, where this is going to help you later in the game to get more Qs off during a team fight because the 10% CDR saves you about an auto attack to reset your Q. So that's nice. But then with Absolute Focus, it's going to be giving you more AD whenever you're at above 70% health, which is going to be most of the game. If you're playing the laning phase correctly, you're never going to be below 70% health. And then when a team fight starts, you're always going to be in the back line too. So, and you have a heal for yourself. So pretty good synergy there. That, and then you'll see how this stacks up with the other runes, because then the next rune is going to be Gathering Storm. Gives you AD every 10 minutes, so the later the game goes, the more AD you're going to get from this rune. And with Senna, like, you have to understand, like, you're functioning as a marksman support, so you're always scaling, like always, and then you're constantly just stacking lethality items as the game progresses. So then having the extra AD for free is so valuable. So then you combine Absolute Focus, free AD, Gathering Storm, free AD. And then for the secondary runes, I want to usually go with Taste of Blood and then Ghost Poro. Taste of Blood is basically a laning tool where you're going to be trading one auto attack with the enemy AD carry usually, and then they'll usually retaliate with, say, one ability. Maybe they have a range support, and then that support's trading an extra auto attack. So this is going to give you a little bit of extra health every 20 seconds whenever you're trading. And 20 seconds in the bot lane, it feels really good because you don't have to just trade every single second of the lane. So you do have downtime in the bot lane because the waves are just slower in the side lanes. So this keeps you at a better health range basically, so long that you use it correctly. And let's say if you're playing Senna really well, it's going to give you pretty high value. And if you're playing Senna really bad, it's going to give you high value because you're just going to have more health than you would otherwise. And then Ghost Poro, with the bot lane, there's now 3 brushes, so you only really get value if you have a ward in the enemy's brush that's closest to their tower, because then you're going to see if the support's in there, if the jungler's moving into your lane. You're going to see like basically just the enemy enter the lane, and then that gives you most of the information that you need, right? Because if they enter the lane, then they're going to be in the second brush or in the third brush. And then if you see the jungler move into the alcove, then he's in the alcove, you know? It also helps you spot the enemy support doing the same, because let's say they have the wave barely pushed up, and then you see them move into there, then, you know, you actually have information to play with. And with Senna, where she's so defensive, that's really what you're looking for, defensive utility. That, and like nobody's talking about this, especially in preseason it seems, but like with Ghost Poro, every time you spawn one, it gives you extra AD, and this stacks up to 30 times. So you can get 30 AD from this rune. It's so ridiculous. Senna's auto attacks are get 20% bonus AD damage. So it's like you get free AD from this, free AD from this, free AD from this, free attack damage from the support item, and then basically every single item you build on Senna is a lethality plus AD item. It's so insane, like what you can get for free on this champion. You're basically getting a BF sword from items. You're basically getting a BF sword just from Ghost Poro, and then Absolute Focus plus Gathering Storm. It's so much attack damage for free. And then guess what we're running in the adaptive runes? Attack damage, and then if you're against melee support and then enemy AD, you can run armor. If you're against range versus range, probably just run scaling health. But if you don't know which one to run, just go with armor. It's pretty safe in the bot lane, as you're going to be taking auto attacks from 2 champions, minions, and then maybe a tower shot. So this would be the rune page that I recommend for anyone to run defaultly, if you're not even looking to like think about the game, or if you're just looking to like get a recommendation to that's like solid, that you don't have to change, and then where you can learn the champion from, because that's what most people are looking for in a rune page. So that's that. In the rest of this video, I'm going to be talking about like variations of what you can do with Senna's rune pages from my understanding, which is still kind of shallow as the champion's pretty new, but I do have a good amount of games on this champion. Let me see how many games. So if you're not interested in that, then you can you can take the runes and just skedaddle. But, you know, like the video before you leave. Let's see. In the preseason, I have 65% win rate on Senna. I don't even know how to check beforehand. But yeah, 65% win rate, and mostly just running a rune page like this. Let's say if I was playing into one of the like most drastic changes of the rune page that I can think would be this. And this would be if I'm playing against a Leona or Nautilus, right? You could take Bone Plating Revitalize, you could take Nimbus Cloak, Gathering Storm, you could even take Nimbus Cloak Celerity, because whenever you have press the attack against a tank, it makes like, because if you're playing against like let's say a Leona, the laning tool of Aerie doesn't really make sense, as you're not going to be able to build up poke against a champion like that, and then if you do so, like they're not trading damage back. They're either all inning or they're doing nothing. So with a rune like Press the Attack, and then all the minor runes from this gives you, or not that, you get more mana, you get tenacity, and then you get more damage towards tanks. And then with Press the Attack, you deal a bit more damage on a 3 auto attack proc, which isn't hard to do with Senna. You auto Q auto, or you auto Q. Like it's really not that drastic to run something like Press the Attack on Senna. And then it's also going to give your AD more damage onto that same target. So let's say you auto attack Leona, and then you auto attack again, she E's on top of you, you W, and then you use your E, she stuns you, you Q, and then if her AD is like right on top of you, you use barrier, and then you move backwards, and then you're out of range for the auto attacks from the enemy AD because of the E, right? And you have Bone Plating Revitalize, like Bone Plating will block damage for free. But then probably even better would be Nimbus Cloak and then Nimbus Cloak Celerity, because it's not so much about the like hyper scaling at this point. It's about like being able to flip a matchup that is primarily dominant in solo queue, right? So I think that's an interesting variation for champions like Leona, Nautilus, etc. I'm not so sure against champions like Thresh, because champions like Thresh you can actually beat down with a rune like Aerie. And then the tenacity doesn't necessarily save you, as Thresh's main engage is like doing nothing, and then Lantern, Flash, Flay, ult, right? So I don't think that's so useful. You could run Guardian on Senna, but again, like not so useful. None of the runes in this second row is that useful. Second Wind is only useful if like you're gonna get damaged a lot, and then it's like, what do you even run secondary, right? Like I'm imagining this being played into like Xerath or Zyra or something, champions that actually do beat Senna. And then, yeah, you could run something like this, I suppose, and then Adaptive Force, Magic Resist, and then Flat Health. So I haven't tried this because I haven't played against those champions yet in solo queue. So like I haven't actually been able to just feel this out once, but it doesn't seem so bad. And then with those champions too, let's say you're playing, let's say it's worst case scenario. Let's say it's your AD carries Kai'Sa, you're playing Senna, and then the enemy bot lane is Syndra Xerath, right? Even if your Kai'Sa gets hit by a Syndra stun, you could still Q them. They will get Guardian and then be able to, and then you can use your E, and then the movement speed and shielding from Guardian will help them move away from Xerath's abilities, or just out of range of Syndra's as well. So that's kind of interesting. Guardian Shield actually, it doesn't scale off AD. That's so weird. The enchanters actually get better value, huh? Because they build health items and AP items. I'm not so sure about that. I've seen Glacial. It's really bad. There's just no argument for Glacial. It's just worse than the other runes on Senna. And then anything in the domination tree also really doesn't add up. Like Dark Harvest is like a cool montage win more rune, but it's really not the way to go, you know? If you're trying to like get montage clips by dealing more damage and getting ults off, sure. Not so cool though. It's not even like that dominant of a rune either. It's not like running Electrocute on Bard. Just, it's like the enemy's already dead and then you dealt a little more damage to them. So, cool. Back to the main rune page though. I see a lot of people taking Scorch, and I don't think it's worth either, because primarily your damage is dealt through auto attacks in lane. You're going to be spending your Q, but then having like 15 to like, let's say 25 extra damage realistically every single Q isn't going to make or break a lethal in lane, because you're either overkilling champions or your goal isn't even to kill the champion in the first place. It's just to get them at a low HP so that you can either get a CS lead, get control of Dragon, or get tower plates. Like, it's really like Caitlyn the support, if that gives you like some better context. So Scorch super bad, Water Walking not so much synergy. But then for the secondary runes, like you could run Magical Footwear Biscuit Delivery. Biscuit Delivery gives you 140 gold for free and then some extra mana. You could even run like this and this. And then let's say this is like Nimbus Cloak, Magical Footwear, and then Biscuit Delivery. Let's say if you were playing into Fiddlesticks, right? Then you could upgrade these to Merc Treads. Around 11 minutes, that wouldn't be so bad. And then the extra mana would help you sustain in lane and then actually like really beat a Fiddlesticks who's overstaying. So that'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, these two basically give you like 450 gold for free. But that's not so necessary on Senna, as the bonus AD is just super valuable. Previously, I was running this before the change to Presence of Mind, but having the increased maximum mana, not so important. And then the cut down damage, but before Season 10 patch was live, like the only supports being played bot lane were Aftershock supports, but since most supports are just enchanters now in the bot lane, this loses a lot of value. And then Last Stand and Coup de Grace also don't add up. But like, let's say the most default rune page for Senna is probably something like this, which, I mean, it's close enough. It's not like super mega bad, but you have to get value out of bone plating, right? And that means you have to take a willingly negative trade. For a ranged champion to get value out of bone plating, that's what you'd have to do. Second wind's not so bad, as it like happens naturally. But with bone plating, like you would have to, like I said, you have to take a willingly negative trade, and if you do so, the damage that bone plating is going to block isn't going to equate into a one trade because of it. Because Senna's auto attacks are really slow, like really slow. So unless the enemy overreaches the trade by like 4 seconds, you're probably not going to get the value out of bone plating by getting extra damage on the enemy with the auto attack. And then revitalize, I mean, it sounds cool, but Senna primarily functions as damage early in the game, and until you complete Athenes, your healing and shielding is kind of like an accessory more than a necessity. So that's how I see that. And then if you get more AD, it's going to give you more healing as well. So it's like revitalize is nice, but unless you're getting value out of the healing and shielding aspect of it, it's the same reason why Forbidden Idol items are bad on Senna, is because you're not getting value out of the healing and shielding. You're only basically getting value out of the healing. You do have your ult, but it's not like a Janna shield where you're going to be casting it 2 or 3 times in a fight, or like 20 times in a laning phase, something like that. And then it's 10% additionally stronger to targets below 40% health. You're usually just healing champions at like 70% health, 60% health, and then dealing a lot of damage. So that's most of the variation. But yeah, I think is probably the best rune setup to go with Senna, and then your playstyle should be to like to play the laning phase like as well as you can, get as much poke as you can, but then also like just play it like neutral defensive, let the enemy make a mistake into you and then punish it, and then don't commit yourself into the enemy. That's like the only way you lose on this champion, is by playing it as if it's like an engaged support or some shit. It's like your champion functions as an enchanter, and it's a really strong one too. And it doesn't even take that long to scale. Like once you can complete the first lethality item, you're basically like in it to win it. So anyways, if you found this video helpful, or if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll reply basically any question. And then check out my Twitch, twitch.tv/SollyNelson. I play League of Legends there. Alrighty, peace out. Hope this helped. Bye bye. See ya.